I called Chet, and I said, Chet, she told me she wants a divorce. And he came and he met me at the bar, the same bar. And I said to him, I said, Chet, I need another beer. He said, no, you don't. Want me to buy you iced tea? And he sat there with me, and he just listened to me for hours. And he kept buying me iced tea, and he kept buying me iced tea. And I finally was done feeling sorry for myself. And Chet said, now you know I got to talk to you about Jesus. So I let him, and he left, and I went and got the beer. A few months later, my wife and I had worked things out. We understood we just weren't talking to each other. You don't understand how important your marriage is, and your communication, and not taking one another for granted until something happens in your life where you have to communicate with one another and you realize you weren't communicating at all. My wife had to have an operation shortly after that, and I was home, and I was home to take care of the kids and take care of the house and make sure that dinner was ready. She couldn't do any of that. She healed from that, and TJ was in his accident. If you've ever dealt with a family who has gone through a death or a life-changing event, you know that many times they don't make it. The marriage doesn't make it because people are grieving so differently. And what matters most is me. And God had stopped us. We weren't believers at this time, but God had stopped us and said, I know what's coming. I can't stop it, but I can fix you before it happens. And that caused us to be together today. Stronger and better than we've ever been. Chet spent all this time. I'm not going to make this about Chet. I just want to kind of preface where we are. Chet never left our side when TJ was in the hospital. And every time I saw him, he'd say to me, Tim, your family needs to be in church. They need to be in church somewhere. And he never left me without saying that. Anybody here ever been invited to church? Ever? Everybody in the house has been invited. Did you go the first time? You did? First time you were invited? No, I didn't. I didn't. Most people don't. You know, the average person goes to church at least 7 times. Gets invited to church at least 7 times before they ever go. That's the average person. Then they come, and they're just sitting there. They don't get saved. Sooner, then they keep coming, and then they get saved, right? That's just how it works. That's how sanctification works. That's how our lives get changed. Something happens to every Christian to make them submit their life to Christ at some point. I want to go to the Word. Luke 14, 16 through 23. Jesus replied to this story. He was talking about the banquet that was being prepared. He said, a man prepared a great feast and sent out many invitations. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servant to tell the guests, come, the banquet is ready. But they all began making excuses. One said, I bought a field and I must inspect it. One said, I have bought 5 pairs of oxen and I need to try them out. Please excuse me. And another said, I now have a wife. I can't come. This is a good time for me to stop and remind you that just because I'm standing up here doesn't mean what I'm saying to you is true. And I urge you to pick up this book and read what I say to you. I can tell you anything, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't make it truth. Only what's in this Bible makes it truth. The verses I'll read to you today are from the New Living Translation. This book is from the Holman Translation. My personal belief is if a Bible's got blood in it, it's truth. It's good. Everybody's got their own opinion of it, but that's mine. If there's blood, it's truth. Jesus spoke a parable to show how important it was to him to expand the kingdom. Although the New Testament, all throughout the New Testament, Jesus shows us that rescuing the lost is more important than the safety of the found. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean once we get saved, Jesus doesn't care about us anymore? Absolutely not. What that means is once we're saved, everything else is taken. Nothing that's going on in your life, not addiction, not poverty, not the loss of a job, is more important than someone else who's on the path to hell. The entire New Testament is about bringing people to the kingdom. Amen. Your life's going to get better just because that's what Jesus does. Somebody else has to come to the cross. And that's going to be more important. A great example of that was in the parable of the lost sheep in Matthew 18, verses 12 through 14, where Jesus told us that the shepherd would leave 99 sheep that were grazing in the field to go out and find that one that was lost. Because you know, a sheep will stay right where it's at unless something distracts it. Then you have to go and you have to find that sheep and you have to bring the sheep back right where it was. And then he'll stay there too. But we got to get him there. When Jesus came, he came to save the Jews. That's why he was sent here. But he already knew that the Jews weren't going to accept him. When he came, he knew exactly what his mission was going to be. He knew why he was here. He knew what the outcome was going to be. Before, when God said to him, I'm going to send you, he already knew he was going to die a man's death. When the Jews wouldn't accept him, that opened the doors to the Gentiles. Y'all know what a Gentile is? A Gentile is a Roman, a Greek, a barbarian. Oh, sorry, German? Is that what you said? Sure. A pagan. Anybody who was not a Jew. And in the Jews' mind, they were inferior socially to the Jews. Who thought that? The Jews thought that. Not God. Not the church, but the Jews. This is the kind of disobedience that allowed God to show the rest of the world who He is and what He's willing to do. I stopped to tell you where to read. I'm going to back up for a minute and finish that verse. The servant returned and told his master what they had said. The master was furious, and he said, "Go quickly into the streets and alleys of the town and invite the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame." After the servant had done that, he reported, "There's still more room." So his master said, "Go out into the country lanes and behind the hedges and urge anyone you can to come, so that my house will be full." That's what Jesus did when the Jews rejected Him. It opened the doors to the world so that His house can be full. Leading people to Jesus is not an activity. It's a lifestyle. It's something that we have to do every single day and be excited about it.
Amen.
I work for a company that trains truck drivers to be car haulers. The trucks you see going down the road with all brand new cars on them, and they're all twisted in 100 different directions. And a young man came to me one day. Anybody here ever been in the military? The military, I'm not 100% sure about what this is, but they call it coining. Okay, if I work under a colonel or a sergeant or whoever, they have a coin that's theirs, and you go out, and the men always in the military always have a coin in their pocket, and it's like I guess it's like a gambling thing. They set the coin down, and you pull your coin out, and whoever has the highest ranking coin buys dinner, buys the next, buys movie tickets, whatever it is that you're doing, that person pays. This young man showed me this coin, and he said his coin was named for my grandfather. My grandfather was a Munford Point Marine. You know what that is? We know what the remember the movie Red Wing or Red Tail with the black fighter pilots in World War II. They called them the Muskegee Airmen. I always want to say Tuskegee, the Muskegee Airmen. During the same time, the Marine Corps had men who wanted to be Marines, and the United States needed Marines. This man's grandfather was one of the first 20,000 black Marines in the United States. And he was so excited. He said, look how they honored my grandfather. His grandfather, if you know anything about the Marine Corps, all Marines on the East Coast go to Parris Island, South Carolina. These Marines went to Mumford Point, which is a part of Camp Lejeune up in North Carolina, because during that time, they were considered to be socially unacceptable people, just like the Gentiles. They were shoved off in this corner. They were sent off to fight for this nation. Many of them lost their lives. And he was so excited when he showed me this thing. And he said, my grandfather did not do this out of pride. He did not do this to make a racial statement. He did this because he loved the United States. He wanted to make a difference. And I shared with him for a minute, and he showed me the coin, and he went to the next person that works with me and showed it to them, and he was so excited. And I thought to myself, what if every Christian in the United States had the same kind of enthusiasm that this young man had to go out into the streets, serve Jesus? You know, the world expects us to act like Jesus. We can't even think about doing that. But what we can do is set a good example of who he is in us. And that's the very best we can do. I believe that if we ever, when we get as close to following Jesus, because that's what Christian means, Christ-like, when we get as close to following Jesus as we're capable of being, that's when we die and go to be with him. So you say to me, what can I do? How can I be a part of this? When a person walks through these doors, you have to bring them. The first thing you can do is give them a sincere welcome. Make them feel like you're truly glad that they're here. I walked in here this morning and I was coming up the ramp. I had 3 people waving at me. Now I don't know if it was a hello or a hey, we're back here, but 3 people waved to me and let me know, we're glad you're here. If people aren't glad I'm here, I don't want to come back here. This is a small church. I know you guys want it to be bigger. My son said to me while we were sitting here, he said, Dad, I see that full one day. Only we can do it. We have to fill it. We have to fill this place. God will send people to us. We got to ask them. When a new person walks in the door, you can't make them feel like you're better than they are, because you're not. You know, we're sinners saved by grace. That means we're still sinners. You know, it's just washed by the blood now. We got to let them know where we've been. You know, I shared my story. I was in the bar. I'm telling you, I was in the bar 8 nights a week. That's because I was so drunk I didn't know there was only 7 days in a week. Okay? I smoked cigarettes for 30 years. I know what addiction feels like. Maybe I've never been a drug addict. Maybe I've never been homeless. Maybe I've never been a prostitute. But I know what addiction feels like. I know what pain feels like. I don't need to tell them. I need to let them tell me where they are. Then I can welcome them. Because you know what? People don't care how much you know. So this is deep. They know how much you care. When that's how you reach people. That's how you bring people to the church. That's how you expand the kingdom, is by letting people know how much you care. Some people think, show people That this is a place not to find judgment, but to find love and to find support. It's a place where imperfect people come to worship a perfect God. Perfect, perfect God. But what's important is that you don't make it awkward. I sat in a church one time, and I was a Christian. I had been invited to see a guest speaker by my friend, and it was a huge church. They said, everybody get up and shake hands with someone. Unless you're a visitor, then you sit down. It was so awkward. You know, I come to you and I single you out, and you don't want to shake my hand. See, you don't even put your hand out to shake my hand. See, it's how awkward that was. Don't make it awkward for people. Make people know that you're genuinely, sincerely happy they're here, and you genuinely care about their life. John 44:38 reminds us, because we all know this, I sent you to a harvest that you didn't plant. Others had already done the work, and now you will gather this harvest. Chet planted seeds in my life. People before Chet planted seeds in my life. One day my son, who's going to a Christian youth center, and I'm taking him so I can get him out of my house on Friday night so I can do whatever I want to do. Good, bad, or otherwise. On my way to pick him up, I saw a sign advertising a church that was meeting in a school. I didn't even know that. I just saw the sign for the church. And I told my wife, because I knew I was supposed to be the spiritual leader in my home. You know you're supposed to be a spiritual leader, go? Okay. I said, find that church for me, because I'm going to go there tomorrow. I didn't care if you were going to go. I don't care if the kids are going to go, but I'm going to go there. So I went there, and I made it. My kids got up, and they got dressed. My wife was dressed before I got out of bed. Me and my pride and my kids walked into that church that morning. I recommitted my life to Christ that day, that very day. I was a horrible example of a Christian, but I was still a Christian. I couldn't wait to get out of that church building. You know, I told them to meet me in the school. So I would hide behind my dash and light that cigarette, because you know it's against the law to smoke on school property. But I had to get my cigarette lit. Conviction took over in my life. And I told my wife, I said, this is where I'm going to be. And I want you to be there with me. But if you're not going to be there, I understand. And she said, you need to call your S-mom. That's my dad's wife. And I called her and told her what I said. And she said to me, you know, me and Christy have been praying for you for months. Immediately my pride was pushed out of the way. Maybe not immediately, but it sure got stabbed pretty good. I started, my family was led to start a ministry that helps people who have been homeless, who are living on, who are still homeless, who are working but just don't make enough. And we go on and we do street ministry, and we meet material needs. That's what we were led to do. And in doing that, I learned to love people for who they are. Now I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say, because what I don't mean to say is that God puts drugs or alcohol or anything else like that in your life for His glory. I promise you that's not what I'm about to say. However, when I go out in the streets and I'm giving away tacos, and a man walks up to me with a 16-ounce beer in his hand, he got that from somewhere, and I promise you no minister gave that to him, but he wants a free taco. If I was not where I was, I would not have been able to relate with that man. Okay? I'm not telling you what I did was, please understand, I'm not telling you what I did was for God's glory. But God took what I did, used it for His glory. About 4 years after that, the pastor of my church sat me down and he said, "It's time for you to be ordained." I don't know if I ever told you that I was ordained. It was the most humbling thing that anyone had ever said to me. Not because of my pride, I'm a pastor now, but because I had made such a change in my life. God had had such an impact in my life that a man who had been a pastor for over 30 years sat me down and said, "God wants you to feed His sheep." That's humbling. On the day that I was ordained, there was a young lady that was my friend in high school that was always witnessing to me. And besides my family, she was the first person that I thought to call and say, "Will you be there?" Now, it is an honor. It is a humbling thing. You're being placed in a place of honor. I couldn't think of anyone else that I would rather be there aside from my family than her. We worked at Winn-Dixie grocery store in high school, and this was back in the days when there was no such thing as an open container law. It was only a DUI. So what she would do is she would let me sit in the back seat of her car and drink beer after work, and she would drive me around so that I didn't get arrested for being drunk driving. All the time, she's looking in her rearview mirror, witnessing to me, inviting me to church, inviting me to Bible study, inviting me to youth group, just inviting me over to her house to have dinner so that her father could reach over and grab my hand and pray with me when we said grace at dinner. You know, no matter how long you were unsaved, it never hurt your feelings to reach out and grab somebody's hand and say grace over dinner, did it? No, you're not going to pray with me over the troubles in my life, but we can bless the food because we might get diarrhea. Can I say that here? I mean, it's real, right? So I called Lori, and she came and she cried when I told her how important it was that she was there. And by the time I got home, this message was posted on Facebook. It said, "Tim, Adam, and I have been friends since we were teens. And today I was honored to be asked to attend the ordination of him. Although I don't remember being much of a witness for Christ to him, he says that I was. I, among others, planted seeds in his life that God has reaped a harvest, culminating him into being ordained into the ministry this morning. If you are praying for someone, don't stop. God hears and places people in the lives of your family and friends that you may never know about. You may never see the harvest. I was blessed to see this one. Tim, I love you and your family. God bless you as you serve him. God bless your family." This was somebody who just did what she was taught. As Christians, we have to make telling people about Jesus a priority in our life. Have you ever been on the way to work? You stop to get a cup of coffee that you're really running too late to stop and get anyway, and you see somebody hurting in the convenience store, and you know this is a time that I can tell them about Jesus. Or I can just do something nice for them. You know, maybe we don't need to tell somebody about Jesus. We need to show somebody who Jesus really is. Sometimes you gotta give somebody a hand up. Not a hand out, but a hand up. Let them know you're not alone. There's other people who hurt just like you in this world. People, we have a misconception in this country that people will not listen to us if we tell them about Jesus. You know who doesn't listen when you try to tell somebody about Jesus? people who've left the church. Why did they leave the church? They left the church because we, the people, not the building, not the kingdom, the people inside the church, hurt those people to a point of no return. We didn't love them enough. We didn't guide them enough. We didn't show them who we are. We told them, you can't do this. Now, let me go get in my car, hide behind the dash, and light that cigarette. Because I got to hold it down, because it's against the law to smoke on school property. That's what we did to people. Those people will not receive you. Somebody who's never heard about Jesus wants to be educated. They're not ashamed of him. They don't know who he is to be ashamed of. When Chet came to me, I wasn't ashamed to talk to Chet. You know what? Chet wasn't ashamed to talk to me either. We've got to reach these people. We can't let age be a factor either. That boy right there was 12 years old when he made a difference in my life. No, he was younger than that. He was a lot younger than that. I remember he would cry when he was 3 years old because his brothers were getting on the bus that came and picked all the kids in the neighborhood up, and he couldn't go. They finally let him on that bus, and it was the happiest day of his life. And he'd been serving Jesus ever since, from 3, 4, 5 years old, whatever that was, and that child serves Jesus. He had a little girlfriend who called him a name, a Jesus lover, or Jesus freak, or something like that. And he said, you know what? He's more important than you. He tried to reach her. He couldn't reach her. So he severed his tie with her. You know, sometimes we plant the seed and we got to go away. We can only plant the seed. We can't water it. We can't reap the harvest. We plant the seed and move on. Chet, how many years was it since I saw you? I don't even know how many years I was a Christian before I called Chet and said, hey, guess what happened in my life? But when I called him, we talked for almost 2 hours on the phone. Sooner or later, you'll find out these people that you're trying to reach have gotten reached. There's so many churches that are single generation churches. They're afraid to reach out to young people, to old people. You know, there's a lot of years between me and some of the people in this room, some older, some younger. We have one thing in common, and that's the salvation in Jesus Christ. If we don't reach younger people, where is the future of the church? If we don't reach older people, where is the wisdom that comes from making mistakes running the church? You know, people who are unsaved today have knowledge to help budget a church, to lead a church. They just don't have the knowledge to teach in a church, and they're looking for somewhere to serve. We need to take the education and the wisdom of older people and the youth with their vigor and energy and put them together, and that's how we're going to expand the church, right? The overall picture. I went to a church when I was a child that my grandfather, I think my grandfather helped plant this church. He served on the elder board until the day he died. All of the serving aspects he either did or participated in or was an overseer of. So when Christy and I got married and we began looking for a church, the obvious place to go was to go there. We walked in the door and everybody in the building knew me. Everybody in the building was happy to meet my wife. She was pregnant, I think, with Brandon, maybe with my next older son. And all they cared about was throwing a baby shower, because there had been not a woman of childbearing age in that church since they were of childbearing age. And And we were all in trying to be members of that church. But we couldn't. We didn't relate to the pastor. We didn't relate to the people. They were, I would say the average age in this church at the time was 65 minimum. The average age. I think there was one other mother or one other person close to our age, but she was the child of one of these people who knew my grandfather too. It wasn't long before we were totally away from the church. And we didn't leave there and look for somewhere else. We just stopped coming. We can't have that kind of a mentality that it's okay to let people just go away. You know, the Jews have an old saying. I don't know how familiar you are with the Jewish religion, but the Jews said, we are only one generation away from a total disconnection with God. They teach their children the scriptures from the time they're born. They have rituals. It's legalism, but they have rituals that they teach to their children. There's things they have to do at birth, things that boys have to do at 12 years old. How far is Christianity away from total separation with God? If we don't raise up leaders in time to learn from our wise leaders, where's the church going to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 50 years? Where are my great-grandchildren going to go to church if we don't raise up leaders inside His church? At the end of Moses' life, Moses took Joshua and he laid his hands on him. And he openly told the entire nation, the entire kingdom of God at that time, this is who I bless. At that time, a blessing is not what we think it is today. At that time, a blessing was, you're the one I've chosen. God told me to choose you. I'm putting my hands on you publicly, like what we call ordination today. I put my hands on you, and I say, God told me you are His man. Joshua then went into the land and took what God promised. But at the end of Joshua's life, instead of raising up a leader, he anointed the different tribes. And what happened? People had no one to follow. After Joshua's death, we moved into Judges where there were people who ruled over us. They had people who ruled over us instead of a man, a person, a leader who was anointed. And that gets a lot deeper than that, but that's basically what happened. I've seen single generation churches where the pastor dies. The people in the church die. There's only one thing left to happen. The church dies. That's not Jesus. That's pride. That's us getting in the way. I got to be in charge. Right, honey? I'm in charge. We got to follow the Spirit. We got to go where we're led. Whether it's inviting people from work, bringing your children, bringing your parents, bringing your brothers and sisters, but we have to get people through those doors and make them welcome when we get here. They need to know that Jesus Christ is their Savior. That He'll accept them where they are. He'll take them from the pig pen that they're in, wash them up, and set them out. I got 5 things you can take with you today. Number 1, you welcome everybody who walks through the doors without judgment. You don't know who's walking through that door. You know, anybody in this room not know who Billy Graham is? You don't know who Billy Graham is? Billy Graham is probably responsible for his mouth, his words, getting more people saved than anybody maybe in the history of the United States. But somebody got him saved. Somebody told him about Jesus. The second thing is to remind people that Jesus didn't make you perfect. You're only forgiven. We all have things in our lives. We all have our crutches. We all have our vices. We all have... I don't think there's a person in the world that can honestly say, Jesus made me perfect and he's done with me. We've all got something. And if you think you don't have something, you're surprised. We've got to look for opportunities everywhere we go to invite people to church. You know, in my former life, I looked for an opportunity to invite somebody to the bar with me every time I was going. I'd call everybody in my phone. This is big. This is the hardest thing for any of us to accept. Prepare to sow seeds that you think are going to fall on that soil. And for someone else to speak life into them again when they accept Jesus as their Savior. But also be prepared for that someone who will accept what you have to say. And they want to go to church right now. Take me. Lead me. Say the sinner's prayer with me right now. Just don't wait till Sunday. Just do it now. That person's out there. You know, there's a parable, like I said, the bad soil. There's Jesus spoke of a parable, and in one book he said, you will reap the harvest 100-fold. That means for each one of us that are saved, the kingdom will reap the harvest 100-fold. That means for each one of us that gets saved, 100 people should be saved because of it. The good news is there's another parable that starts at 30, so you still got time. The last thing to take away from here today is remember that every generation needs to feel important in the kingdom of God. I heard a pastor one time say that the reason, if you look at a church, especially bigger churches with hundreds of different life groups, and the ones that get the dollars put toward them, the ones that get the dinners, all of the things that the people think are important, all this effort gets put into these groups. Never the youth. Why? Because the youth don't tithe. It's truth. It's statistics. It's wrong. We've got to change that kind of thinking.